Early marriages or child marriages, especially in rural areas, are also responsible for the growth in population. Very concerning. An estimate of 40% of child marriages in the continent. An estimate of 40% of child marriages on the continent. So what we're saying here is, of all the marriages out there, 40% are out as a child marriage. We need to reduce this number for a number of reasons, because children have to be educated, they have to have their childhood and be educated and become adults and make decisions for themselves. Because in this case, families are making decisions for them. They are not making these decisions. If they have the opportunity, they will not make a decision to get married. Right, so poverty is part of the mix. Families are poor. A way out of poverty is to marry off their daughters into rich families, perhaps, getting money from those families and so forth. And this is the motivation. So we have to tackle this. Governments, institutions, organizations have to tackle this from many standpoints, including poverty and education. Educated parents will not allow their children to get married before, for the most part, before the age of 18 as children, or before the age of 16. Very less likely. So a study here found that girls who marry before 18 years of age are likely to have 3 or more children. Are likely to have 3 or more children than women who got married after the age of 18. Important to the discussion, and again is adding significantly to the population growth, because if you get married at 14, well then the chances of you getting, having 4, 5, 6, 7 children are very high, right? Are very high. And because these children are not in school, right, their main sole role is to bear children. And this is again where it becomes a very concerning trend, a very concerning phenomenon that we as a society really have to tackle and pay attention to and begin to address this in a very significant way. Among the study population, 54% had experienced child marriage. So amongst the study population, right, 54% of that study population, now it's not 54% of the continent, please take note. There's a study, a number of people involved in the study, and amongst that number, 54% had experienced child marriage. And then, still on that number, it says here, the countries in the study with high child marriages or marriage age were Niger Republic, 81%. Right? Again, this is not the general population of these countries. This is amongst the population in the study. Again, it's important to understand this context. Amongst the population in the study, right? Amongst that population then in the study, 81%. In Niger Republic, in Chad, 77%, not far off. In Guinea, 72%. In Mali, 69%. In Nigeria, 64%, right? So the instances then, and this may mirror what we have in the larger population. So the instances of early marriages are clear in these countries and across the continent, especially when we talk about the northern part of the continent, the middle part of the continent, and the western part of the continent. Not so much in the southern part of the continent, but mostly in the middle part of the continent, you have these instances of child marriage. So it says here, many negative impacts to child marriages, right? Of course, if you're having children getting married, a lot of negative aspects to it. Most often, the girls have to discontinue their education. That's what it means. For the most part, they have to stop going to school and be full-time wives. And then they also stand the risk of serious health implications during childbirth, because they are not fully developed, they are not mature physically, and that has an impact on them. And that's why we have to discourage this trend. And that's why we have to do everything as a society to ensure that parents are educated and parents are lifted out of poverty, not to give away their children in marriage. Again, serious health implication, and we have to look at it from the broader perspective, because then it falls back on society. It falls back on society to address these health situations, to make sure that they have the health care provision and so forth. So we have to again begin to understand how all of this ties in and how all of this impacts the larger society. Additionally, the full potential of these girls are not realized in the economic, social, and political context. So here is a situation where the girls are getting married, and because they're getting married early, they are not partaking in society in terms of contributing the potential. They are not educated. If you're not educated, the chances are you're not able to contribute in an effective way or contribute in the maximum way to society, right? Of course, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, that's not happening, right? So they are not realizing their full potential. And we know, students, from research, from all available data, that women are very intelligent. They are extremely intelligent and they add significantly to society. We can see examples in Western countries where women are working and adding and inventing and managing properly and taking care of companies and countries as well. Countries like Germany have been headed by women for a long time. The United Kingdom have had female prime ministers, Margaret Thatcher to Theresa May. Women have the ability. But here we have a situation where we are saying that they get married as children, they forgo education, so they are not contributing to society. Society is shortchanging itself in that scenario because you don't have the full capacity. A society functions well when everyone is involved in the workplace, when everyone is involved in society, is partaking of all of the economic activities. That's how societies progress. And that's why we see in Western societies where women are more integrated and so forth, that's why we see them progressing economically, progressing politically as well. And in many regards, we see women aspiring to high offices. So a lot more needs to be done to change this trend and to ensure that women have the capacity to have education and then to move on and to realize their full potential and to be contributing citizens to society, and by so doing, society moves forward and society realizes its full potential. So now we can begin to understand the factors that are responsible for the population increase on the continent and begin to put those factors into perspective and to have, even more importantly, an understanding of what the next 30 years looks like for the continent and what the next 50 years looks like for the continent and how the continent can leverage the population increase economically and politically and socially to its advantage and ensure that it is prosperous, it is competing well with other regions of the world.